Here to share with us his insights on the government's plans to boost economic growth following that sharp slowdown in the second quarter. We have with us on the show Dan Roces, Security Bank AVP and Chief Economist of Security Bank. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for joining us on One News Now.
Good morning, Dero.
Yes, sir. Government plans to boost spending. Is this enough for us to reach a target growth of 6 to 7% given that slow second quarter GDP of 4.3%? What other measures, sir, do you think the government should take to reach this target?
Okay, so based on the figures that we saw yesterday, out of the second quarter 2023 GDP,
Yeah.
The prime factor that pulled down growth was actually a lack of government spending. So that's easily reversible if the government just spends more. But it's easier said than done. There has to be some approvals of the projects where those funds will go, as well as some dampening already in terms of the schedule to proceed because of the perceived possible movement of the typhoons later this year. So spending will be up for sure, but that might not be enough to help reach the target of at least 6%. So rather for us, we're projecting. Actually, we were looking at 6.3%, but given that very dismal figure in the second quarter, we had to adjust further. Probably going to get 5.6% growth for the full year of 2023.
Yeah, I'd like to clarify, sir. Your GDP projection for the second quarter was, you mentioned 6%, is that right?
We were at 6.1.
6.1, yes.
Yeah.
How about for... yes, go ahead.
I mean, everybody missed the projections. So the 4.3 was a shocker,
yes,
to say the least. So we knew government spending contracted, but we didn't really expect the extent to which it actually pulled down growth for the second quarter.
Yes, and the median projection for second quarter GDP was at 6%. Did you expect this 4.3% growth at all?
No, it was unprecedented. I mean, even if the models or the simulations that you do show that you expected some contraction in terms of government spending, some contraction in terms of investment, even if household consumption went down a bit. We never, well, at least the math of it never showed that it could go below 5%. So that was actually a really big surprise to us.
Okay. And, sir, FDI net inflows, they declined in May. What's the impact of dampened investor sentiment on our growth in the second half?
All right. FDI, that's actually related to the lack of government spending as well. So those actually need some infrastructure support as well. So there could be some correlation to it. We have to check the numbers, but I would suppose, given all the pledges and some inflows, even if it did decline, it should have actually bumped up GDP a bit, but it did not. So I could suppose it's related to that lack of government spending as well. So once those FDIs actually materialize, like I said earlier, that's actually going to help with if they fast track the approval of those projects, government spending should roll out. Like I said, it takes time to get those projects approved. So it could still be dampened up until the fourth quarter.
Okay. And there have been a lot of inflation stories. I think you've heard a lot of them in the past few days. We have that big-time oil price hike, higher prices of palay, manufacturers calling for price hikes. How big of a drag are these on a GDP in the second half?
Okay, let's talk about its effect on inflation first.
Okay.
So that's actually a significant risk, especially the oil price spikes, and to which we are also expecting further spikes because of that production cut out of Saudi Arabia. No? So that could potentially be a big risk, in terms of the inflation direction. You mentioned typhoons. We have wage hikes as well, transport hikes, rice getting. If you take a look at the recent inflation numbers, rice is one of the biggest factors that actually pulled up inflation in July. No? So
Yes.
those are risks that I guess the BSP will have to assess. No? However, we have this very good base effect coming from inflation. So that will help with the inflation expectations as regards to, even if we're not really feeling it, even if the
Yes.
month on month is going up, the optics of the headline will actually provide some comfort, in terms of managing inflation expectations. That could potentially, we're expecting flat growth henceforth for GDP. And that also has something to do with how inflation really is felt,
Yes.
aside from the headline numbers. So consumption still, resilient, even though it declined in the second quarter. It's still around 70% of GDP. And you know how we spend during the holidays. So that
Yes.
could provide some bump as well. But in terms of inflation as a growth dampener, we're expecting that to actually happen as well.
Okay. Well, lastly, sir, we have that monetary board meeting next week. Do you agree that the BSB should pause? And when are you expecting rate cuts?
Well, at this point, they have to pause, given how the collective rate hikes in the past have already affected growth. So, there is upside risk. Citing the inflation risks that I mentioned earlier, they could afford a pause at the moment. But I expect them to actually say that they will be very much willing to adjust should inflation get out of control and reverse its trend, which is something that we all have to be mindful of given the risks. So they'll be pausing. They will probably pause for a very long time. Notwithstanding that risk of a possible rate hike, given inflation, they could probably stay pat up until the second quarter of next year at the current rate of 6.25. We are, among Southeast Asian countries, we are the ones who can afford to deviate from the Fed's path. So we'll only cut once the Fed does so. So that's the expectation. And we pencil that Fed cut will likely take place end of the second quarter next year. So we'll be likely following soon after.
Well, definitely we'll be keeping an eye on these developments, but unfortunately, that's all the time we have for now. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, Sir Dan Roces, Security Bank AVP and Chief Economist of Security Bank.
Thank you.